Okay, well, we say welcome again to another edition of our videos on Benjamin Academics Batty on YouTube and on Facebook. We are Benjamin Academics. On other platforms like Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, we are Benjamin Academics Batty. Today we're going to be looking at a very important part in Cameroon history, that is indirect rule. And in that, we need to know what indirect rule is all about. And then we'll talk about the reasons for indirect rule in Cameroon. Now, first of all, indirect rule, as been stated, was a British colonial policy that was being used to rule the people indirectly. Now, talking about the British colonial policy used by the British to rule the people indirectly, we can explain that using one of the alternatives, that is Lord Frederick Lugar, which in one of his books known as a Dwarf Mandate, he tried to explain the efficiency of being ruled indirectly. And so on that aspect, he was trying to explain on the book of Tropical Africa, where it was being used by most Africans or British in Africa to rule the people. So let us talk about the reasons for indirect rule. One of the reasons for the indirect rule was the influence of traditional authorities. You know, indirect rule actually was because these traditional authorities could easily rule their subjects. Now, when they could easily rule their subjects, the British saw it that it could be, first of all, less expensive for them. So therefore, they accepted what indirect rule in the economic, or that was one of the reasons for what for indirect rule in the economic. Now we can also talk about what shortage of administrative personnel. Now, shortage of administrative personnel also influence what indirect rule in our economic of Cameroon. Now, as a result of that, first of all, the British had lack of personnel. They never had inadequate. They had inadequate personnel that could control the territory. So for that reason, they thought that only indirect rule that could be used to do what, to control the territory. And talk about the next part. We talk about financial problem. Now, financial problem was also one of the reasons for indirect rule in our territory, Cameroon. Now, financial problem there, we can talk about what some of the British just came back from a war in Africa, in Europe as well. So he was using most of his income to do what? To carry out development in his territory. So for that reason, he needed to use what? Indirect rule to what? To rule the people. He could pay the chiefs at very moderate prices, rather than inviting European powers who could come to Africa, or British who could leave Europe to come to Africa to rule the people, who would have been very costly. Okay, transport difficulties. Transport difficulties was one of the reasons for what for indirect rule in the economic. Now we can talk about transport difficulties, like talking about navigable roads. Actually, when the German came to the coast of Cameroon, what they do, the Germans could only build up small roads and small navigable areas and sea areas where they could easily leave Europe and come to Africa. So the British did not have enough roads, good roads, and good areas where they could navigate into the interior. So they thought that ruling the people through their chiefs could easily make the announcement, or to do pass any information, or to carry out any activity of which they want to carry out. And next we'll talk about language barrier. You know, language barrier was one of the reasons also for indirect rule in the economic of Cameroon. Now, the European powers could not easily communicate with the Africans, because most of the Africans had their own, or most of Africans, especially in Cameroon, because we're talking about the indirect rule in Cameroon, most of them had their different languages. Indigenous people had their languages, like some of them speak the Bank language, some of them speak the Bakosi, Akwaya, and all the others. So they had different languages that they speak. So the people could not, the European powers could not, or Britain could not actually come and use these their languages. And some of the natives could not understand what the English language. So for that reason now, they could only speak with the kings and chiefs, with the kings and chiefs could now transform the information or transmit the information to their subject. Okay, the other part of the reasons for indirect rule, we can talk about the avoid of clashes with natives. You know, European powers wanted to avoid clashes with the natives, because they never wanted to have problems with the natives, like for having native resistances. Because if they could come and rule the native directly, they would have been having so many clashes with the native. They would have been having so many problems with the native. So in order to avoid problems and clashes with the native, they had to use the policy of what? Indirect rule. So that was one of another reason for what? For the implementation of what? Of indirect rule in Cameroon. And last of it, we can talk about the success of indirect rule in Nigeria. You know, actually, indirect rule was already succeeding in Nigeria. Indirect rule actually started in Nigeria because the British implemented indirect rule in Nigeria. So it was already succeeding. Why it was succeeding in Nigeria, they thought that it could also be successful in Cameroon. For that reason, they implemented indirect rule in Cameroon. Dear viewers, we say thank you again for watching our videos on Benjamin Academics Bate. On YouTube and on Facebook, we are Benjamin Academic. Do not forget to like our page on Facebook, and do not forget to like our videos. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel in as much as getting update when there is any video, that is to notify you. We are always there to give you the best according to how the GC standard look like. Hoping to see you in our next video. Goodbye.